Get that bio from? Did we give you that, or did somebody make that up? Oh, okay. All right. So since you posted some of those crazy videos that we do, I thought that I would be remiss if we didn't do something with fire to begin with here. So, um, so it's unplanned, of course, for the team members in the back here. Very fine powder, lycopodium powder. It's the spore of a moss plant, of evergreen. It's really combustible, right? So if you pour a pile of it in your hand and try to light it, it doesn't do anything. But if you disperse it in the air as a fine mist, it really burns very spectacularly. So it's something like this. So there you have it, a little bit of fire to start things off. Has nothing to do with Idea Lab. That's nothing that we do in Idea Lab whatsoever. It's lycopodium. It's the spores of the club moss plant. It used to be used inside latex gloves as a sort of a dry lubricant. So you get your hands inside the gloves, but they don't really use it for that anymore. It's more of a cool chemistry. Yes. Yeah. Well, no, not all is dispersed in the air, because if I made a pile of that and tried to light it on fire, it really wouldn't do anything. It'd get toasty, but it wouldn't actually combust. By making a fine particle with it, you increase the surface area, allows it to rapidly combust, just like squirting fuel into a automobile engine as a spray. I will let you try that at home. You can try that at home, absolutely. That's what's so cool about science. You can try these things. All right. Oh, yeah. Yep. You take a paint can, put some of it inside, shake the can around, put a candle inside, shake, blows the top of the can off. No. But it's on YouTube. You can see it on our YouTube channel. Yeah. Okay. So Idea Lab is one of our newest experiences here at the Science Center. It's been open for roughly 6 months or so. And I guess I was going to start off the conversation with, like, why in the world would we create a space like this? And, you know, you guys are probably an audience that kind of would clue into this when I talk about maker spaces, hacker spaces, things like that. And I have to tell you that the number of words on the slides drops exponentially after the first two. So this, I'll just let you read that. I thought it was kind of a cool philosophy for the space. Over the past 8 to 10 years, you know, science centers and museums and libraries, just regular people have been creating these sort of maker spaces, hacker spaces. And for me, it reminds me of going back to when I was a kid with my dad, right? He'd be out in the garage doing something with his Shopsmith woodworking set. And then when I got bored with that, or when he got mad because I didn't know what a crescent wrench was and I couldn't find the right tool, I'd go back inside, or I would work with my mom on her sewing machine, taking it all apart, cleaning out the lint, rethreading it, cutting out patterns from McCall's, and helping her make stuff as with a sewing machine. So I think somewhere along the line we lost some of that sort of stuff. We became more consumeristic, if that's even a word. I just made it up now. There's such a cool sense of accomplishment when you actually create something with your hands and work through that struggle of failing and it doesn't quite work, and you know that's when you actually learn how to do it. When we were creating this space, this Idea Lab space, we had these like 4 ideas that we thought would be important if you're going to be an innovator in the future. These 4 areas of expertise that you'd need experience with, and that'd be fabrication, design, electronics, and coding. And this was sort of like our internal thinking process. It's like, that's what people need. You don't need to be an expert coder, you don't need to be an expert fabricator, but you need some smattering of comfortability with those areas to be able to do something innovative in the future. You know, this Idea Lab space it's a sort of a hybrid exhibit and programmatic space. You guys were out there touring through. You see we got an exhibit area, we've got 2 sort of programmatic spaces. And one is the public space. The tinkering area is where you can just drop in and spend 2 hours doing whatever the activity or the topic of the month is, exploring things. And then the think tank space with the darker lighting tonight, that's our school group space, our weekend family workshop space. And we knew we kind of wanted to have those kinds of spaces in the Idea Lab. And again, just one more thing you can read. I've read it before. I think it's kind of cool. We want people to fail and want people to struggle when they're doing some of the stuff in these spaces, but we don't want them to completely fail so much that they become frustrated and run away unhappy. We did an opening day with all of our team members before we opened this to the public, and we had every single team member here in the building go through activities and workshop topics. There was one person who was just really angry, really got frustrated, really struggled with stuff, and she overcame it. We had another person who was really sort of frustrated and then went home thinking about it, and I got an email message from her the next day, and it was, we were trying to get those motors to spin, and I was running, I was trying to think, could I make the motor spin the other way? So I went to the kid's bedroom, I pulled out some motors, I got some batteries, I put some bubble gum on the shaft so I could see which direction it's spinning, and you can make a motor run in both directions. All of you take that for granted, probably. But for this particular team member, this was like a revelation. It's like, wow. And she felt so empowered and so excited that she went home and did all that stuff. And so for me, that's what we want to do with everybody who comes into this space. If we can get everybody so excited they go home and talk about this, or they dig out some other stuff and try to do things, we kind of win. So that's pretty cool. Before I forget to, there's this idea of, one of our team members likes to say this, low floors, high ceilings. So the activities that we do in the space are approachable, so there's a low floor. Anybody can come in and start to do it, but you can take it as high as you want. You can make it as complicated as you want, and you can also go totally off track. Even though we're doing jitterbugs today, if you really wanted to make a scribble bot, those are actually the same thing, but you could actually go in that other direction and do something totally different, and we're okay with that. I think it's working okay over there, Andrew? Yeah, no, should I talk louder? Uh-oh. Huh, okay, well, you can put subtitles in. All right. So, this space took a long time to create. The timeline for this, it was more than 4 years ago. We had conversations about having some sort of science laboratory in the Science Center where people could come in and do cow eye dissections and things like that. And over time, it kind of morphed into what Idea Lab, which was funded by the Science Society, private donor group that raised more money than what we spent on the Idea Lab, and they have that in reserve for future things. But NAMSA and Eaton also helped contribute money for programming efforts as well. So, in fact, as you exit the Idea Lab, there's a big old sign on the left of all our collaborators and sponsors and funders and things like that, because I'll forget who they all are. You just go to that sign. That's why we made it. Go check that out. But we're grateful for the fact that we have the money to create this space. Nobody else will probably realize this, but this was our original floor plan, and what actually came out, nothing like that at all. We completely changed everything. So there are 3 spaces actually there's 4 spaces, because this is one space of the Idea Lab, which is actually not finished yet. Our plan is to remove drywall behind you over here so you have a view of the river, Medica facility out there, using it for corporate development, professional development, things like that, or as an overflow space for other things in the Idea Lab. And then we have the exhibit space out there, we have the tinkering area, and the think tank. So this was the most attractive floor plan I could find. I have to apologize. But so think tank, we've got some storage for our demonstrations, which happen over here in our theater, tinkering space up there, and then the exhibits in the middle. So again, just to get you oriented. I didn't realize you're out before the presentation, so I'm obligated to put a floor up there so you'd know what you were going to head out into. This is where I have to figure out how to use my mouse. This is going to be tricky, so I don't know if I'll be able to. Am I there? So everybody loves a construction time lapse, right? So I can make it work. And if not, here we go. So it's kind of cool to see how it all came together, especially if you had been here before and seen that was the remnants of our old 3D laser theater from a long time ago. Really, really long time ago, this whole area was called Life Force. After that, Engineer It was in this space. The Eat It Up area, which got picked up and not redesigned. It's all the same experiences. We put a new veneer on it, I guess, and added some new things and made it look a whole lot nicer. It's on the other side of the lower level. So the entire lower level of the Science Center has really transformed quite a bit in the past year or so. We worked with Rudolph Libby to do this. Again, a variety of artists who, again, are on our sponsorship sign out there. And we can stop this, too, unless you're really mesmerized by it, because is it mesmerizing? All right. So it's kind of fun to see eventually we'll get inside some of the rooms here where things come in and things go out, and then things come back in and they go back out, and I'm not sure why they keep moving so much, but... Panels for the marble run. That's the tinkering space. Things go on the shelves, and then things will come off the shelves, and then new shelves will come in, and things will go back on the shelves. One of the things that we were trying to do with both of these spaces is have storage of supplies that was out visible for the public. They're not hidden away in a back room to help foster that idea that if we're working on a project and you need a nail or you need a pom-pom or a googly eye, it's out there, and we can go, and we actually have visitors do that, Like, I didn't expect visitors would be so free about going and opening up another bin to try to grab something to use it for their project. But it's kind of cool because they're thinking outside the parameters we've set up for them. There we go. Okay. How to move the mouse pointer to the, because I broke our clicker, so I have to use this mouse. At least that's what our IT guy says. Okay, so before we actually built the space and did everything, we spent a fair amount of time prototyping many of the activities and many of the exhibits and many of the experiences. We went to other science centers to see what worked well, and one of our board members says, you don't need the actual Mona Lisa. A copy of the Mona Lisa will do us just fine. And really kind of take that to heart a little bit because it was a great quote. We went to the Science Museum in Minnesota, the Exploratorium, New York Hall of Science, Pittsburgh's Children's Museum, Indianapolis Children's Museum, and just kind of looking at what they were doing programmatically and exhibit-wise to try to come up with exhibits that held up well to the test of time and had a deep holding time for visitors. They weren't something you come up, hit a button, and then... We also worked with UT students in the engineering college and the UT Makers Society. They actually created one of the exhibits out here for us, and we worked with a couple of their students as well. Here we're actually teaching kids how to solder, and I think when we were doing the prototyping for this, because this is one of our workshops that you can schedule, and you walk away with a blinky badge, that has little LEDs that blink, but you learn how to solder. We did people from age 8 to age 80, and it's interesting. If you tell somebody the soldering iron is hot, they don't do it, So it's cool. They're using a real tool. They're doing real stuff. They're creating something, and they get to walk away with it. So that's a really cool thing. And we had a young man helping us out. He made he's showing you here how to apply the soldering iron in the correct order. So he made these props to let you know kind of how to do it, because it's just too hard to do it with all the little things. And so that was pretty cool. So you guys saw the exhibits out there. You played with some of them, and I think what's cool about some of these is that like the marble run encourages people to work together as a group, right? And often what we challenge people to do is make a marble run where the marble goes as slowly as possible, top to bottom, because fast is easy, right? You just drop it and you're done. But it's big enough that you could carve out your own little space and do whatever you want. You could try to hog the whole thing, or you might have to collaborate with other visitors, which is kind of a cool thing, because then you really have to think how to solve problems. I don't know if any of you checked out the musical bench. Did anybody sit on the musical bench? All right, you got to do this afterwards. So there's a bench out there. It's got metal arms on either side, and it's too wide for one person to sit down and touch both those metal contacts. But if you get two people, and heaven forbid you're gonna touch fingers or something like that, it measures the resistance through your body, and it generates musical tones based upon the resistance of your body. It's kind of a cool thing that encourages people to work together with one another. So check that out when you go. one of the nice things about the exhibits is we do actually see, this was from a donor event, okay, full disclosure there, but you do see adults actually working with the exhibits. I think a lot of times people think that we're just a children's place, but adults, they get into it as well. And kids, when the wind exhibits, the vertical wind tunnel is something that Connor mentioned talking about a long time ago, where when we met with the UT students, we talked about having a vertical wind tunnel. And the beautiful thing about that is that you just have to keep iterating on your design to see if you can get something that floats or sinks. And by the end of the day, it's a huge mess over there, which then tells me that that's a great thing because people are actually working with stuff and creating things. And yeah, this is here to remind me work is never done. I forget who was talking. Somebody was talking to me about the marble run. And so we put all this stuff out there for the marble run. We put out like masking tape in the beginning. We put these really long cardboard tubes. And we quickly learned that the masking tape needs to go away because it just glues everything together. And it's just a nightmare to clean up. And the long cardboard tubes are better used as swords than as conduits for the marbles. But if you just simply take that cardboard tube and cut it in half, it now becomes, it's no more fun to use as a sword. And it ends up on the marble run wall. So we keep trying different things out there all the time. So like the work is never really done in trying to come up with things that are open-ended that the visitors can work with, but yet also aren't a nightmare to try to clean up at the end of the day or foster a behavior that you want. And then here's an example of the musical bench. So check that out when you're out there. It's kind of cool. In the tinkering space, my clicker does it work? Oh, look at that. Okay, so in the tinkering space, one of the things we want to do is have a space where visitors could drop in at any time. And so our plan was they can drop in at any time and spend as much time as they want, as long as there's a seat available. There's about 25 seats in the space. There's no upcharge for it. The topic changes roughly every month. We wanted to have comfortable seating so that you want to kind of come in there and sit down. We didn't want stools that are uncomfortable because you're just going to leave. And then, this whole idea of letting visitors struggle. The thing that makes this space work is the team members that are in there, because they have to know how to facilitate the interaction with the visitors in just the right way. Because you don't want to be that crazy IT guy that comes in, pushes the person, click, tells you how to do it, and then you never know how to do mail merge in Word, right? But if you have to struggle through it yourself, you'll learn how to do it. But you don't want to get so frustrated you take the baseball bat out to the photocopy machine or whatever. And so we made the tables, there's sort of a modular system. Part of the idea is that you're seated across like a big family table looking at what other people are doing and maybe drawing inspiration from what they're doing on the other side of the table. Everything has that sort of wood sort of feel to it. It's a comfortable sort of, we call it like a knowable material. You know what it is. It's wood. It's not some weird epoxy resin, something. Even down to like the faux bamboo floor. We want it to be a comfortable space. And we give people real tools, too. We give them hot glue guns. You touch the end of a hot glue gun, it hurts. So don't do that. Just last month, we were doing trash formations, where we take plastic bags and you fuse them together using an iron. How many of you have used an iron before? Wow, you're the wrong crowd. Because the kids and adults that were in there, when I'd be helping kids to do it, it'd be like, have you ever used an iron before? And they're like, no. It's like, okay, well, this part is hot. Don't touch, and you just keep moving. Nobody got hurt, right? Nobody got hurt. But it's just interesting that we give them a real tool, and we trust them to actually try to make something with that. And that's an empowering thing. Real tools teach you real skills, right? We're not making, well, you get the idea. So, we've done a variety of topics in the space, and somebody asking me earlier about adults in the space. Do the adults actually engage with the activities? And a great example was we had a family of four come in. The daughter was older, the son was younger, and mom and dad. So the son and daughter, they were doing the project. They were making automata. This is not them, but they were doing something like that. And I said to the dad, "Hey, do you want to do it?" And he's like, No. That's just for the kids. It's for the kids. Well, the project takes at least 45 minutes to an hour. So after about 10, 15 minutes, Dad is sitting there going, oh, I need some of these, and I need some of those. I need that. And so then he started actually doing, then mom was assisting him, and so it actually sucked them into doing the project, which was, I think, also just like a really cool thing. And that's what we had hoped would happen in the space, but when you're planning for this kind of stuff, you never really know, is that really going to work? But it's really kind of cool when it does. It's really surprising, It's kind of fun. These are automata. They're like cams and cam followers and pulleys and things like that. You change rotational motion into vertical and twisting motion and back and forth motion. Get as complicated as you want or as simple as you want. And again, but it does take a long time. And I think that's a really cool thing about this space. It's unlike a lot of the other parts of the museum where it can be a quicker experience. This actually requires an investment of your time. You got to sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And at first that sounds like a really long time, but once they start to get into the project, the time just goes away, and I think they get really sucked into it. Jitterbots are really cool. It's build a simple circuit or build a simple robot is the way you sell it. When somebody, hey, do you want to build a robot? Of course, who doesn't want to build a robot? So you come in, you learn how to make a simple circuit with markers and supplies and glue dots and hot glue. And it's interesting, too, how there's examples of these in the glass cases outside. If you tell people you're going to come in and make robots, a lot of times you get really cool, fanciful things with lots of like wiggly eyes on it and feathers and all that. But if you tell people we're going to build sumo bots, they don't really spend as much time decorating it and making it look more attractive. It's just like it needs to be utilitarian. I need a big pusher on the front. I don't care what the berry basket looks like. I just need that one thing to work. I don't have an example of that here, but it's kind of interesting how they can take a totally different direction just based on how you phrase what the activity is going to be. And, this is the trash formations, hot glue guns and irons and all sorts of crazy stuff. And we actually partnered with the Toledo School for the Arts. We had a group of students who were Idea Lab fellows, and they came in and helped facilitate activities with visitors. And so it was interesting to see how they developed as well throughout the time. Because many of them were very, very shy. They didn't want to talk to people. But then over time, they kind of came out of the shell a little bit. Others were very gregarious, and they had no problem. So it was a great experience to bring those students in and have them be the facilitators with the general public. And we're going to continue that program as well next year. So, a handful of things that we've done, linkages, Franken-toys. We're going to take apart toys. I think there's a Tickle Me Elmo in the case out there that has been taken apart and Frankensteined. And so we've been working with like Goodwill and Salvation Army to get broken electronic toys. And this will be a challenge because often you really can't put them back together in a functional way. But, even just taking the skin off one and putting it back on backwards can sometimes be a really cool thing. And you get to see what's inside. You get to see how those little mechanisms work. Like there's a mechanism that wiggles the tail back and forth. Until you take it apart, you never know what's in there. Some really cool things that we'll be doing in the tinkering space. And then the think tank is that space over here, the darker area. That's our place for school groups and families on the weekends. One of the things, if you went into the space, so again, I didn't think you were going to be there before, so you spoiled my whole surprise. One of the things in the space that Jeff, who's in the back, is sort of overseeing the programs that happen in here. The tables that we chose were purposely chosen so that we can make the room modular. If you want to have rows like a traditional classroom, which we don't really do, you can. If you want to make octagons, you can do that. If you want to make other shapes, you can do that so that you can have places where a facilitator can walk up to the table without having to push somebody off to the side. Or if you're doing something with laptops, there's a space next to the person where you can sit down without having to hover over them in an awkward way. Again, the same idea with having the storage in the space and visible, so if you need something quick and easy to go get it. Generally, these workshops have an upcharge for school groups and for the general public. But here, typically, you're going to take something home. So it's something where you can take home your Jitterbot. We're in the tinkering space. We really can't afford to have everybody walk out with that $3 motor, but we do have a vending machine so that if you have a vending machine, I'll let you take yours home that you've worked on for 2 hours. Or if you just want more binder clips, you can get them out of there as well, banana clips. What else? Oh, and the other thing with the space too is we tried not to have it have a front. Like there's no space really Okay, there is a whiteboard in there, but that's just because it's a really big whiteboard. But there's no space where the presenter is going to stand the whole time, because the nature of the workshops we do in here, the presenter is facilitating around the whole group. If you're doing cow eye dissections, they're moving to the audience. So we've got monitors around the periphery of the room, so that no matter where you're sitting, you can see that exploded view of the eye or that close-up of the soldering tip in action. So it's a space for a classroom of like 32, configurable seating, no front of the room upcharge. I said all that. Here are some of the workshops we've done. Shoebox pinball, where you make pinball machines out of shoebox and cardboard and duct tape. The Blinky Badges is the soldering stuff. We just did some coding recently using Scratch as the platform. So we did a special event called the Nerdy Derby. And I think, did anybody hear about the Nerdy Derby? Oh, okay, that's too bad. We're going to do it again, so you should come back the next time. You've heard of the, I should stop for a second and say, I think this event embodied a lot of the ideas that are present in the Idea Lab experience itself. This sort of open-ended work using real tools, appropriate for all ages, and just really cool. So you've heard of Pinewood derbies, right? They got a lot of, right? And the cars got long, they can't polish the axles and all that. Well, the Nerdy Derby has no rules, other than your car has to fit on the track. Okay, so what we did was we found plans for a track, and we downloaded them, and we went to the makerspace in Ann Arbor to use their really large CNC ShopBot. Big Fab Lab didn't have one. And we made a really big track, 42 feet long, and then we gave people supplies. We gave them nuts and bolts and washers and wood wedges and foam blocks, everything you can imagine, and foam blocks, so they're going to actually cut those into the shape of a car. Big track, big building tables. We covered the entire lower atrium, and it was really pretty cool. 3 tracks, and yeah, it was really cool. So, but what's cool about it is they had hot glue stations and the hot wire cutters, and they could make the cars however they want to make them. And that freedom at first was a little overwhelming, because people come up, we tried to strategically set the tables up so you get your wheels and axles in the beginning, and then all the building stuff is down there. And at first, people were like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Just grab the wheels and axles and go to the building table. You'll figure it out, and it'll work. And it did. I can't find my little pointer now. So the hot wire cutter, that was really cool, right? That's so satisfying. If you've used one of those before, you just cut through that foam. It's really cool. So they're making their cars, the bodies of the cars, using that. And the of the table, this is actually pretty clean. By the end of the day, it was crazy. But I think that speaks to the fact that people were actually doing really cool stuff. They were, cutting things, they were drilling things using the screwdriver. They did all sorts of weird things. And the idea here is you build your car and you bring it to the track and you test it, right, before you go all crazy modifying it. Because we had 2 different competitions, right? The one obvious one is the fastest car, which everybody wants the fastest car, right? But the other competition was the slowest car. The slowest car to make it all the way through the track, to the end, through the finish line. And so it's kind of interesting if you think about that. How do you make a car that goes fast enough to go over one hump, but then just barely dies at the very end? And so we had like a leaderboard throughout the day of where people were. And this is just like, before I get to that. So we had other stuff going on too. Instead of just like the Nerdy Derby, if you didn't want to do the Nerdy Derby, you could make derby hats. We had derby hats in the Idea Lab. You could make those. We had Matchbox cars upstairs for the really, really little kids, and we had slot cars for anybody who remembers what slot cars are, with the little trigger dealy, and they spin, they fly off the track. So we had other stuff going on, because we know not everybody wanted to maybe make the car. So that was pretty cool. And but this, I think, is really cool. So we had, the greased lightning competition and the slow and steady. That was the fast and the slow race. And, throughout the day, people would, they'd test their car, and of course they want to go faster, because you could test as many times as you want. You could enter as many times as you want. You keep coming back. And people would make modifications, and they'd iterate on it, and they'd put it on the track, and they'd say, no, I don't want track number 1, I want track number 3, because that's the fast track. And so they kept doing that. These 2 people were Blue Angel and Slow Turtle. They were competing all day long to have the slowest vehicle. And literally, from the time we opened to the time we closed, they just kept coming back, and they just kept doing it again and again until they finally tuned their car to the point where it was the slowest car. And, having, if you weren't there, you had just had it was so cool to see people like iterating on their cars and modifying things and changing things. And I think the Nerdy Derby was a great example of how to take what's happening like in the Idea Lab and bring it to an audience where everybody can participate in it. In fact, one kid at the end of the day, he didn't want to come in the morning. He said, "Oh, I don't know." He said the mom got him down here. They ended up spending the entire day, and as we were talking to him, I said, "Yep, we're done for today, but we'll be doing it again tomorrow." And he's like, "It's going tomorrow?" They never came back. They're members. They come all the time. But it was kind of cool to see them get so excited about the fact that this may be going on the next day because they had so much fun building things and changing things and designing things and iterating over stuff. So that's pretty much what I got for you. Idea Lab. I know you guys were in there earlier. We'll be around, so like if you have any questions, obviously we can answer questions. But afterwards, if you wanted to like check out some of the stuff or had any questions about the experiences in there, the equipment we have, certainly let me or Jeff know, and we can talk to you about it. $1.1 million. Oh, Science Society has, I think they raised like maybe 1.5. It's staying with the science. They're a private funding group. The 1.1 million went for creating Idea Lab. And the way that process worked was they were raising money for many years, for like at least 3 years or so. They asked us to come present to them 3 different ideas for how to use the money. It's much like if you're familiar with the Apollo Society at the Art Museum, same sort of deal. We had to go and present 3 different ideas. We spun 3 different ideas. Idea Lab was one of them. They chose Idea Lab, and then we went forward to build Idea Lab. The remaining money is still in Toledo Community Foundation, waiting for it to accrue and for us to come back to the Science Society with a couple other ideas. And it's all for capital projects. So for our Imagination Station, yes. I was just going to say more live photos. We can. Yeah. So elephant toothpaste is a classic. It is, which is H2. I can hear it cutting out. It's H2O2. And if you catalyze it with something like potassium iodide, what we do as a demonstration, we take hydrogen peroxide 35%, which is 10 times more concentrated than what you have at home. And we add some food coloring to it, and so we did multiple colors. Then we add the catalyst to it. It just creates a ball of foam. Instantly. No, just the hydrogen peroxide. A generous helping of food, 8 ounces of food color. Like a because there's more of it going on. Did we put what in it? We'll have to try that. We've never done it that way. It's worked obviously the way we do it, so it's like, yeah. I did get some flack, I guess, on that video. If you notice, we called it rainbow toothpaste. Then somebody commented, it's like, guy doesn't know that the rainbow has 7 colors. Well, it's really hard. It's really hard to get that violet color at the end. So we did it with 6. Someone would. But that's right. So before we see more fire, yeah. I just want to thank the good folks at Imagination Station, Sarah, Shelley, Jack, Carl, everybody who helped move mountains tonight and happen for us. Kudos to you. Congratulations on your levy renewal. And we're so grateful to have such a great Let's, okay, so again, it's lycopodium. What I you have the internet, so you know. Yeah, you can do it with most fine powders. Rain important. Cleanliness is really important. Coffee made except it, our it doesn't seem to be. You can things, but yeah. What I like about this though is when it actually, if you do it low enough, you can actually drag the fire across and it keeps sustaining itself, which is kind of cool as it continues to burn. Because you could do this, but then it blows out your flame. That's okay. But you ready? Okay, here we go. And then it dies. Now you can't do anything with that. That's just too fine. But yeah, lycopodium powder.